Hey everyone, welcome back. When I first saw those movie gen videos popping up online, uh, I kind of thought it was like, I don't know, some magic trick, right? Like you type in a prompt and bam, instant movie. But then we got our hands on Meta's research paper, and let me tell you, it's a whole lot more interesting than just magic prompts.
Yeah, it's a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like comparing finger painting to a full-on CGI masterpiece. We're not talking about just one AI here. Movie Gen is a whole team of AIs all working together.
Okay, so behind the scenes of these kind of wild videos, there's a whole AI film crew.
It's like an entire studio system, but, made of algorithms this time.
Mhm.
So you've got your heavy hitters like your movie gen video and movie gen audio. These are your foundation models. These things are trained on a ridiculous amount of data. I'm talking billions of images, videos, sounds. But they're not just mimicking, they're learning how it all fits
And it's
together.
billions, wow. So it's not just like matching, a picture of a cat to a meow sound.
Yeah.
This thing actually understands how those things work in a movie.
It's even cooler than that. Movie gen audio doesn't just get the sound, it gets the feeling. Like a gunshot in a thriller feels different than a gunshot in an action movie? That's the level of nuance. And these foundation models, they're really just the beginning. There's other AIs for tasks like editing, personalizing, really fine-tuning things.
All right, so back to these crazy videos, like that one where a lantern turns into a soap bubble and suddenly the whole background's a city park.
Yeah.
That's multiple movie gen AIs all working together.
Exactly. Think of it like a choreographer, right? Planning out a dance. Each model has its specialty, and they work together to create something that seems effortless, almost magical.
Okay, so far so good. But this latent space thing they keep mentioning, I gotta be honest, it's a bit beyond me. Sounds like we're folding space and time to make these movies.
Well, maybe not space-time folding, but it is about representing the essence of a movie, like mathematically. Think of it this way. You've got a whole movie, right? Now imagine you have to shrink it down, but you're not just making the picture smaller, you're capturing the meaning of each scene in a code. That code, that's your latent space.
So it's less like compressing a file and more like uh, extracting the DNA of a movie.
That's a great way to put it. And MovieGen does its magic by manipulating this DNA, this latent space. It's not changing the pixels directly, it's changing the meaning underneath.
But if they're shrinking down these massive movies into code, how do they keep things from getting lost in translation? I mean, those spot artifacts they mentioned sound a lot like glitches in the Matrix.
Well, they've got these really clever algorithms to prevent that. They use something called a temporal autoencoder, kind of like a master watchmaker, making sure all the gears and springs are perfectly aligned so the watch runs smoothly.
So it's not just about throwing a bunch of data at the AI. There's serious craftsmanship involved in building these tools.
Absolutely. It's like the difference between someone just throwing ingredients together and a chef who understands how each flavor will interact. They're shaping the meaning, making sure the changes flow naturally like a story.
Okay, this is kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Let's back up. How do you even start to teach an AI to make a movie? Like, are we just showing it a billion hours of YouTube?
Surprisingly, yeah, it's not that far off, but there's a method to the madness. They start with what they call a text-to-image warm-up, kind of like teaching a kid the alphabet before they write a novel. They're training the AI to make single images from text descriptions.
So it's learning the visual language of film one frame at a time.
Exactly. Then they up the difficulty gradually. Longer videos, different frame rates, aspect ratios. Imagine going from stick figures to full-blown animation.
So it's learning to tell a visual story, not just create pretty pictures.
You got it. And here's the real kicker. To make those visuals top-notch, they fine-tuned it on a smaller set of super high-quality videos. Think going from film school to working with Scorsese.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about quality. Learning from the best of the best.
That's the secret sauce. Like any craft, you need both technical skills and an artistic eye, and they've managed to instill that into MovieGen.
Okay, so we've got these AIs trained to make movies, but can they help me out with my dog's terrible home videos? I mean, can I use this movie gen to edit?
Now that's where things get really interesting.
So are you telling me, like, I can finally say goodbye to those shaky camera apologies? My home movies are about to get a serious upgrade.
Get ready to say goodbye to those shaky camera apologies because MovieGen Edit is here. They've actually taught it to edit videos using text instructions. Can you believe that? You can literally be like, hey, make the background less distracting, or give this scene, I don't know, a cool sunset vibe.
Hold on, I can just tell it what to do. Okay, that's some next level stuff. That's straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Uh-huh.
But seriously, how do you even begin to teach an AI to edit like that? It's not like there's a YouTube tutorial for how to make robots into Film Editors 101.
Yeah, you're right. That's the really wild part. I mean, there's no giant library of perfectly labeled video edits just sitting around, right?
Right.
So they had to get, let's just say, a little creative.
Okay, now I'm really interested. How do you teach an AI something that even we haven't fully figured out how to, explain or catalog or whatever?
Well, they started small. Think of it like training wheels. They started by training the AI on image editing first. So they're basically treating each frame of a video like its own little mini project. And from there, they just gradually increase the complexity. So they're teaching it about motion, transitions, all those things that make a video, flow smoothly.
So they started small, like teaching it to, I don't know, cut a lamppost out of a photo, and then eventually worked their way up to making my dog magically disappear from the background of a video.
Exactly. And they didn't even stop there. They actually used AI to create synthetic video edits, things like moving objects around or changing backgrounds. It's almost like giving a film student, a whole library of practice footage to play around with.
Okay, so they're using AI to train AI. My mind is officially blown. This is getting kind of meta, don't you think?
It is. And then to really fine tune its editing skills, they use this technique called back translation. And it's kind of like, have you ever heard of someone learning a language by translating it back and forth?
Right, yeah.
So it's like that. It's like they made the AI reverse engineer edits. So it's basically figuring out how to get from the final cut all the way back to the original footage.
That's actually really clever. It's like learning to bake by unbaking a cake. You would learn every single ingredient and step that way.
Exactly. By learning to both do and undo, MovieGen is developing this much, much deeper understanding of the editing process. It's not just following instructions, it's like it understands the intention behind it,
Okay, so let's say I've got my AI-generated dog movie. It's perfectly edited. It's ready for its big premiere. What about the soundtrack? What's a blockbuster without an awesome score?
You're talking about MovieGen audio again. And this is where it really gets cool. Remember how we were talking about it? Understanding the feeling of a sound?
Yeah.
That's really crucial for soundtracks.
So it's not just adding in random dog barks and chirps.
Yeah.
It's about setting the mood.
Exactly. And one of the big challenges here was teaching it the difference between sounds that are part of the world of the video, like what we call diegetic sound, and then the background music, the non-diegetic sound.
So the difference between my dog actually barking at the mailman in the video versus the dramatic music playing in the background as he, bravely defends our home from the evil mail carrier.
You got it. And they had to be really, really careful about what kind of audio they used to train it on. We're talking soaring orchestral scores, booming explosions, not just random car horns and elevator music. They really wanted to make sure it had that cinematic quality from the very beginning.
So no cheesy stock music from MovieGen audio, huh?
We're aiming for Oscars, not elevator rides. They wanted to make sure it understood the nuances of good sound design.
Okay, I'm not going to lie, this is all pretty mind-blowing. But let's talk big picture for a sec. With all this talk about AI generating videos, and now soundtracks too, does this mean I can just quit my day job and become, I don't know, a robot-powered film director?
Well, I don't think you can replace yourself with a robot director just yet and head off to the beach. But MovieGen definitely raises some interesting questions about the future of film.
Okay, what? Give me the Hollywood Gossip AI edition.
Well, I mean, think about it. Will this make filmmaking accessible to anyone with an internet connection? Or will it actually make it harder for human artists to break through?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It could be this incredibly powerful tool for democratizing creativity, but there's always the risk of, unintended consequences. Right?
Exactly. And we haven't even touched on the ethical implications of all of this.
Ooh, okay, what? Tell me more.
Well, I mean, we've talked about how realistic this AI can be, right? But what happens when you can create videos that are basically indistinguishable from real life? How do we even begin to navigate that?
Yeah, it's like that whole thing with deepfakes a few years ago, but on a whole other level. Suddenly, seeing is no longer believing.
It's a brave new world out there, my friend, and we need to be having these conversations now. While this technology is still evolving, we need to understand how it works so we can use it responsibly.
You know what? It's a little overwhelming, I'm not going to lie, but I'm glad we're talking about it. This is way more than just some fun tech toy, right? This is something that could fundamentally change how we experience the world.
You hit the nail on the head, and that's why I think these deep dives are so important. We need to really dig below the surface, understand the nuances, and really think critically about how we want this technology to shape our future.
So what you're saying is it's time to put on our thinking caps
Yeah.
and have a serious conversation about where we go from here.
Exactly. But before we dive into all that, let's get back to like the nitty-gritty of how movie gen actually works, you know? One thing I'm still kind of curious about is like how they chose what to feed this AI. We're talking about billions of images and videos, right? How do you even begin to create like a training program for something that massive?
Yeah. Do they just like point it at the internet and say, go learn? Or is there a more, I don't know,
Uh,
curated approach?
You know, for an AI that's all about making movies, they were surprisingly picky about its media diet.
So they weren't messing around, huh? Like no cat videos allowed.
It wasn't just about, avoiding bad content. They were really picky about the visual quality. They wanted interesting composition, a good balance of movement, stillness. Think like National Geographic, not your uncle's shaky vacation videos.
No offense to your uncle or anything.
None taken. But yeah, they wanted Movie Gen to learn from the best, right? And here's the really cool part. Remember how we were talking about Llama before? That other AI that's like really good with language?
Well, yeah.
They actually used Llama to create super, super detailed captions for all these videos.
Oh, right. So it's not just like passively watching the videos. It's getting like a play-by-play of what's happening in every scene.
You got it. And these captions weren't just like, basic descriptions either. They included stuff like camera angles, the overall mood of the scene, even things like suspenseful music or, fast-paced action.
Wow. So they really went all out, huh?
Yeah.
So MovieGen's getting a master class in filmmaking, complete with, like, expert commentary track.
That's a great way to put it. And because it's learning from this incredibly high-quality, well-annotated data, it can generate much more sophisticated, more nuanced videos itself.
That makes sense. Feed it junk, it spits out junk, right? Okay, so we've talked a lot about the, like, really realistic stuff. But what about the other end of the spectrum? Can this thing handle something more, like, I don't know, stylized, abstract? Could it make, like, a Picasso-inspired film or something?
Now, that is a fascinating question. And the answer is, well, it depends. Remember, MovieGen's been trained on real-world data, so it kind of naturally gravitates towards creating things that look and feel, realistic. It's kind of like asking, like, a portrait artist to suddenly switch to, I don't know, abstract expressionism. They could do it, but they might need some extra guidance, right?
Yeah, okay. So how would you even begin to steer MovieGen in a more abstract direction?
It all comes back to those prompts. If you want something stylized, you got to be really specific. Instead of just saying, like, a cat sitting on a mat, you describe the shapes, the colors, the textures you want, like, I don't know, a swirling vortex of emerald green and sapphire blue, evoking a sense of feline grace and mystery.
So you had to basically become, like, a visual poetry master just to write a prompt for this thing.
The more specific, the more evocative your language, the better MovieGen can translate that into visuals. It's a whole new way of thinking about filmmaking, really.
You know what? This is making me rethink all my career choices. Maybe screenwriter for robots is the next big thing. But seriously, this is still so new. Who knows what's possible,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. I mean, who knows? Maybe someday all you'll need is like a feeling, a vibe, and MovieGen will create the perfect film to match. But for now, learning how to speak its language is key.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to chew on today, for sure. We've gone from like 0 to 60 on MovieGen, from the mind-boggling tech behind it to the potential it has to like completely reshape the film industry.
It's been quite a ride, and the best part is we're just getting started.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening, we want to hear from you. If you could direct your own MovieGen film, what kind of world would you create? What stories would you tell? Let us know. Hit us up on social media. We'd love to keep this conversation going. And join us next time when we'll be back with another deep dive into the latest tech that's blowing our minds. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop asking questions.